The cover page of One Punch Man Chapter 184, titled Scout, thankfully features someone other than Fubuki or Tatsumaki, and it's none other than Saitama with a smoldering fist and imposing pose. To begin this one, we'll be taken somewhere we've never been before, Tatsumaki's house. We can't see much, but it actually looks pretty simple. Answering her cell phone, Tatsumaki was invited to do a commercial for the Hero Association. They wanted it to help them with the recruitment of new heroes. The idea of this was completely ridiculous to Tatsumaki, who believed it to be a complete waste of her time. She saw no point in enticing a bunch of weaklings to join their ranks. That was until she remembered the words of Saitama during the immediate aftermath of their fight. Considering Saitama couldn't even beat a wolf-level monster not too long ago, maybe weaklings aren't so worthless after all. Despite her stature, Tatsumaki is in fact a grown adult, but even still, she's proven to be pretty impressionable when it comes to Blast and Saitama. Blast is like a father figure to her, while Saitama's probably more like a crush, huh? With that, Tatsumaki decides to retract and reconsider her statement, and not long after, she was already on set. With her makeup being done, Tatsumaki would rationalize her thinking with the belief that this would be a great chance to show new recruits exactly what it means to be a hero. After that, it was off to script reading as the director explained everything she needed to know. When filming finally began, Tatsumaki thought to herself that a person can do a hero's job by half-assing it, which is exactly what we saw from this shot behind her. As she channeled the Esper power in her hand, Tatsumaki would think to herself that the world they live in is a harsh one, where death is always looming. It's not an easy job to have. With her power ready to be released, Tatsumaki resolved to make the level of power required clear to all would-be heroes, a responsibility she now believes herself to have as the face of the S-Class heroes. As she tore through the set with a literal tornado of terror, the director would call for it all to end, as the entire crew was either swept up in the danger or only just barely managed to escape it. But oh man, the final product was certainly something to behold. Dazzling and sparkly, Tatsumaki's legs would be shown as she announced that the Hero Association is always hoping to recruit new heroes. As, like an idol, Tatsumaki would cutely point towards the viewers and ask them to make her feel the passion in their hearts. As while winking and making a slight gesture with her hands, she'd charmingly threaten to twist them otherwise. And good lord was Tatsumaki pissed when she saw it. The studio put their editing team to work on this one. Apparently the commercial was AI generated with the footage they took as the base. The person on the line would speak of the producer's intent, but Tatsumaki was way too upset to care. This wasn't what she had in mind at all, and was the complete opposite of her as a person. I wonder what she'd think about Murata's cover pages of her. But just then, someone was at the door. It was her little sister Fubuki, who after seeing the commercial, seemed to be in a fairly good mood, even complimenting her on how cute it turned out, much to Tatsumaki's increased frustration. Tatsumaki then destroyed her own home. So much for that place. Maybe now she'll have a reason to move to the Hero Association complex like Saitama and the others. But then again, considering the Hero Association are the ones responsible for the commercial in the first place, that might not be a great idea. It's honestly impressive that these guys would risk pissing off someone as powerful and as volatile as Tatsumaki. Elsewhere, we learned that the #1 A-Class hero Sweet Mask was actually the producer responsible, and thanks to him, the commercial was a major success. It was even being broadcasted in major cities, which an unknown figure would observe before scoffing at the sight of it. But to approach him would be a woman in business attire who'd refer to him as Mr. Axel. She'd apologize for being so forward, but introduce herself as SHIZUKA, a scout for the Hero Association, an organization Axel was clearly uneasy about. From there, he'd remark about this being yet another scout to approach him. We'd also have his complete design presented to us, the most notable things about him being his roller skates and axe. Let us know how you rate this design from 1 to 10 in the comments. After this, we transition to a meeting of Hero Association executives who are all too pleased by how well the latest publicity stunt has gone. As on screen, there was this sort of Tatsumaki shot that Murata would usually turn into a cover page. But thanks to improving their public image through commercials, along with their false reporting of demon-level monsters being stopped by Tatsumaki outside of headquarters, they have been able to regain the trust of their wealthy residents. All of which was said to have been put together by the recent addition to our cast, Mr. McCoy, a man praised by another shady executive to be especially capable. Maybe this is his way of subtly getting revenge on the Psychic Sisters. Mr. McCoy would feign humility and claim this all to be for the sake of the organization. But despite all this, their own faith in Metal Knight has never been worse. as thanks to recent events, it seems like he was all talk. And actually, Dr. Beaufoy was secretly monitoring this entire conversation remotely. Metal Knight's integrated anti-monster disaster defense system robots were a complete failure. They were designed to use their special sensors to detect, attack, and destroy any invaders. And thanks to artificial intelligence, they were trained to handle countless situations based on the level of any and all threats. But despite being proposed to be more effective than every A-class hero combined, they were all easily destroyed by Saitama. Even when they readjusted to its presumed threat level, it made absolutely no difference. Each of these things cost the Hero Association 9 billion yen to produce. That's about $67 million USD. And they of course had no idea that Saitama was responsible. And since King vouched for him by saying that the robots just suddenly exploded, Metal Knight looks like an absolute joke right now. And their new headquarters itself, which Metal Knight also designed, had gotten pretty banged up thanks to Saitama's fight against Tatsumaki. Based on all this, the executives will come to the conclusion that moving forward, they wouldn't be relying on Metal Knight at all, which was certainly a big issue for the super genius, as he seemed to be betting on their dependency. The Hero Association may not know about Saitama, but Metal Knight definitely does, and he is pissed. According to fellow S-Class hero Drive Knight, Metal Knight is a traitor to the Hero Association that can't be trusted. Not only that, but much like a machine himself, he completely lacks morality, is totally evil, and plans to take over the world. Considering his brilliance, finances, and plan, aside from God, at the moment this guy is the biggest threat to the world. He's amassing a huge army of robots and has been experimenting on monsters for a while now. He even created Mad Cyborg, the thing responsible for destroying Genesis' home and killing his entire family. And now, he recognizes Saitama to be the biggest threat to his plans. And honestly, if he plays his cards right, he could actually be Saitama's worst nightmare. Creating killer robots to fight Kate Baldy probably won't be a recipe for success. He's just too strong. But systematically ruining his life with stupid domestic issues is a surefire way to hit Saitama where it hurts. Mark up the prices of groceries. Put him into financial debt. The possibilities are endless. Not only that, but thanks to the Monster Association arc and how the whole Garo situation went down, it's clear that despite being the most powerful thing around, Saitama isn't the best when it comes to dealing with a million things at once. If Metal Knight spreads his horde out enough, he might actually be too tedious for even Saitama. But Metal Knight wasn't the only S-Class hero that the executives were up against, because despite their cleanup, Tatsumaki was a real troublemaker. Even if they tried to guide her, she's just way too strong to be completely controlled. As Tatsumaki angrily stood in the ruins of her former home, they compared trying to tame her to trying to ride a bomb. Because of this, they plan on increasing their surveillance of both Tatsumaki and Metal Knight from now on. For Tatsumaki, that'll be a problematic development since she's currently harboring psychos despite claiming to be hunting her down. And when it comes to Metal Knight, that's a funny joke because besides watching them right now, since he built and controls all their technology, that'll be next to impossible. And after looking into all their cover-ups, right now, Child Emperor isn't really a fan of the Hero Association either, so he's unlikely to help them. And based on what we see later on in the chapter, it may be even worse than that. One of them would wonder if they still haven't found any other manpower options, to which an agent would nervously respond that they haven't seen any increase in hero applications. In fact, it was on a pretty steady decline. The executive didn't understand. After all, their commercial was really well received, and their approval ratings have only been increasing lately. But there was some key information they were missing. But before then, we'd be taken back to Axel and Shizuka. Axel too was aware of their increasing ratings and would note that business seems to be booming for them, something that Shizuka believed to be a compliment. But according to her, they couldn't afford to take things easy since more powerful monsters were appearing every day. That aside from the likes of Tatsumaki and their other S-Class heroes, many of their members were being defeated despite teaming up. Axel would prepare his coffee, as Shizuka would continue that the S-Class was unreliable and their A-Class were only adding to the injured. Not exactly a convincing proposal, but she'd also say that they needed to take advantage of this booming approval by adding to their forces now. Now, Axel wasn't really a fan of her wording here. To him, it sounded like they saw heroes as expendable, and now they needed him. Shizuka would apologize before admitting that even their upper management considers his strength and public presence to be more than fitting for their organization, which again came across as pretty pompous. We'd also find out that Axel is the leader of a group of vigilantes that call themselves Hunters. He'd heard about the Hero Association struggling to deal with one guy calling himself a hero hunter, clearly misunderstanding how much of a threat Garo really was. Despite their loaded pockets, to Axel it didn't seem like the association was putting their money to proper use. SHIZUKA would then admit that most of their budget was being spent on keeping up their approval ratings and compensating for hero-related damages. And man, this lady really sucks at her job. She is not convincing at all. But she was not done yet. Apparently, their sponsors were always keeping an eye on the association's approval ratings. And for the sake of those ratings, they wanted Axel to be the face of new beginnings for them. They'd give Axel and his hunters, a group of 53 skilled young civilians, a chance to work as professional heroes, all of whom seem to have the same sort of gear on, kinda like the Tank Topper Army. And they're a group that has already proved themselves by taking down a disaster-level demon monster. He also had the strong support of the people. Axel would become more solemn as he corrected her. There were now 48 of them, since 5 of his men died against the same demon-level monster. And instead of displaying any sort of sympathy, compassion, or humanity, this lady completely ignored that and instead made it clear that their activities would not change. But by signing, they would have access to medical treatment, gear, and financial compensation. Axel would then make it clear that he has refused the same offer before. SHIZUKA would then also throw in the fact that they could guarantee him an S-class position. So he's clearly quite powerful, while the other hunters would have to work their way up from C or B class. But to Axel, the issue wasn't treatment at all. Most of the hunters lost someone close to them on account of monster-related disasters in the past, which is exactly why they don't trust the Hero Association. They have tons of money and heroes like Metal Knight, Bang, and Tatsumaki. But at the end of the day, with the construction of the hero complex in what was once a city, they proved that all they really care about is protecting a small group of rich people. He'd also heard that they were letting heroes live there and having them work double duty as security. The fact that she didn't even have an excuse was yet another red flag. Axel believed that the Hero Association wasn't working for the public anymore, and so they had no interest in joining such a corrupt organization. SHIZUKA again had no response to this, and would instead stand and promise to reach out to him again another time, seeming to believe that he would come around eventually. But seeing SHIZUKA without a care in the world, Axel decided to share some valuable information with her. Amazingly, she was already leaving with her back turned to him, as he'd say the Hero Association wouldn't be around for much longer. He'd even advise her to start looking for a new job as soon as possible. Now that got her attention. Past this, we would then be taken to a similar scouting situation in a place called Lightning Room. The scout there would nervously express how much he'd been looking forward to meeting the man before him, since he was a huge fan of something called Super Sumo. Apparently, this huge man was a sumo champion with 700 consecutive wins. This was Super Sumo Yokozuna Raiden. After you're done with Axel, be sure to rate Raiden's design from 1 to 10 too. Like with Axel, the Hero Association scouting was bordering on harassment, as they even came to see him during a tournament despite his continued refusal. But seeming to muster what little courage he had, the scout would explain that Raiden's strength defies human understanding, which was precisely what they needed. Raiden understood the sentiment, considering there was a notable increase in dangerous monsters by the day. The police and military already had their hands full maintaining public order. Not only that, but the number of heroes who could face these monsters directly was very small. The scout, believing this to be his chance, would become fired up as he'd offer the ultimate sumo wrestler a place among the S-class heroes. Again, making it clear just how strong this guy really is. But again, like Axel, Raiden would refuse. In an attempt to sweeten the deal, the scout would speak of how lucrative the job can be, something that Raiden could attest to all scouts saying, much to the man's confusion. The sumo would then admit to already being engaged in a prior agreement, that very soon, the launch of a new hero organization would be announced. He didn't realize the scout wasn't aware of this, but would make it clear that he already struck an agreement with them. And back at Hero Association headquarters, the reaction of the executives was exactly what you'd imagine from a company that had a chokehold on society for years with absolutely no competition. At a similar time, Axel would let it be known that the Hunters would also be a part of this new organization. Not only that, but several of the Hero Association sponsors have also agreed to make the move. And here's the part we should all really care about. Behind the scenes, several S-class heroes have already agreed to make the move. And I'm guessing Tatsumaki's letter must have gotten lost in the mail. We then see Genos informed Atsukushino that he had been approached by this new organization as well. which prompted the good doctor to question what the young cyborg planned on doing. After all, he did express suspicions about the association in the past, and for a second, Genos would contemplate his answer to this question. Meanwhile, Saitama was watching TV and would see Tatsumaki's commercial and spit out his drink when she said, "I'll twist you." As always, I'm Slice of Otaku. Thank you all so much for watching and have an awesome day. I love you.